Hello, welcome to another episode of Through the Pages. Got a very topical book for you today. It's been a while since I posted, but still have been reading, so I got a little backlog to get through here. So today we got Palestine, a Socialist Introduction. This is a compilation of essays, so there's many contributors to it. It's Brian Bean and Sumaya Awad who have edited it and have Sumaya particularly been in the news recently. So after it was, I think, November 23rd, a hunger strike started outside the White House. She kind of spearheaded that, and she was one that really stuck through all the way to 5 days and was one of the kind of most impactful protests early on in that era. So they're in the thick of it now, have been for a long time, and have this compilation of essays here that is a great, not just introduction to Palestine, but sort of the region going back about 100 years up to this book was published in 2020, so does not have, the present day stuff as you would imagine. But it's a fantastic dive into an immensely complicated thing. So this book has, like I said, it's 9 essays covering a range of topics, both history, kind of the way Zionism has developed, the response to the Holocaust, and getting into kind of more modern day surveillance, like kind of how Israel has become kind of the watchdog state. And the next book I'm going to review goes much further into that. So this makes a pretty clear case for Palestine liberation, but it does so in a very consistent way in that it is a socialist perspective. So there's sometimes where that is, I think, inhibits it a little bit, but because there's so much going on in this subject, I think it's a really nice way to just have one kind of like perspective on it. And then like, if you view this way, this is why consistently throughout history, not just like current oppression that we see, it has always been the right case to advocate for liberation of Palestine. So before I get into the further, I think I do want to mention like the one sort of like knock I have on it. It goes through like 100 years of history, and that's a ton. It's also not a lot to some people, and so there's some times where it did feel a little one-sided. I know where I'm at on it. Like hearing more and more of the other side as I've done on my own and read independently outside of this book, I still think the book would have been stronger had it had a little bit more of what the other side is saying somewhat, not just like within the last 100 years, the things that are said in the obvious sort of, or not necessarily obvious, but like the very clear takedown of that. But that being said, it's got a lot in it that is extremely informative, and I wouldn't say the word bias. It's just is what it is. But I think for some people, the history of this land, it's more than 100 years, and so it does a very good job, I think, of presenting the case of why things are the way they are present day and why we should be advocating in a certain way. One thing that really struck me, and I much like with a fiction book, I don't want to give away like the juiciest bits on a nonfiction read, but the claim that we often hear for Israel is and also not going to just dive into my own perspective on it, I'm trying to stay on the book. It's a book review, not you want to hear what I think about this. So I think the point that hit the hardest for me was kind of going through the Holocaust and the rejection of Jewish refugees, and that at the time, as they were developing this new nation state that was supposed to empower Zionism, supposed to be creating what they call like the new man, and just like this new elite strong version of Jewish society that they had been envisioning, they were very selective in the amount of people they would take and the sort of people they would take. They really just wanted like soldier type young Zionists and limited it to 10,000 when there was so many more than that, obviously, that needed refuge. They had the opportunity to do so. They rejected it. They said, it would be a burden, and even started rejecting people, writing back to Germany, like I think the line used was like, the quality of the human material is getting too low. They really, in all of their, basically the Holocaust is used for justification for every atrocity committed by Israel. And it's like, well, that was awful. And like, yes, goes without saying, but the reason it was done, the motives behind it parallel what Israel does in the sense of being very selective, and we only want these sort of people, and not even those types of our type of people, just these ones, and really like narrowing in. And it's kind of a sick element to it, as many things are that are happening in that era or that region these days. But it's a very consistent sort of internationalist, anti-imperialist view of it all. And I think having that consistent thread, particularly when it's multiple authors coming in with different essays, it didn't feel chaotic. It almost felt like it could have been one author, and that's very nice in a compilation of essays. It didn't feel like chaotic or like, well, they said this and they said that. Like it wasn't like too all over the place in that regard. I really did appreciate the kind of the cohesiveness of it. So it's, as any book on this subject will be, there's parts that are a tough read, or you close the book and you're like, wow, I can't just like shift gears right to something else. Like it's it's a lot of processing and stuff. But if you, like me, when October 7th happened, had a very generalized understanding of the issue, this is a very good catch up on what's been going on in what I would still call modern history, last 100 years, and a little bit more than that. But it's a very, very good read. It's pretty concise. Here, about 200 pages of text. Some really good references in it to books and documentaries and that sort of thing. So it's a good jumping off point to kind of get to more. But yeah, that's I could ramble on the subject all along. I'm trying to stay very much on the book. So yeah, it's a vast and chaotic history, and this is a lens I appreciated looking through. So appreciate you watching. Got another review coming up after this on a parallel subject.